It started with a whisper. At first, Emily thought it was the wind slipping through the cracks of her old apartment. But the whisper returned, soft, deliberate, and unmistakably human. She glanced around her dimly lit room, the single lamp casting long, trembling shadows across the walls. Nothing moved, yet the feeling of being watched clawed at her chest. She shrugged it off as stress, a side effect of the endless night shifts at the hospital, and crawled back into bed. But sleep didn't come. The clock blinked 3:17 a.m., the red digits glaring like a warning. Emily rolled over, staring at the ceiling, trying to shake off the growing unease. Then she heard it again, the whisper, but this time it carried words, clear and chilling. It's starting again. Her heart pounded as she sat upright. She tried to rationalize it. Perhaps it was a dream, a fragment of exhaustion bleeding into reality. She shook her head and turned to check her phone, but the screen was black, unresponsive. Panic surged. She fumbled with the charger, the metal cable cold and rigid in her hands. Finally, the phone buzzed to life. The date sent a chill down her spine, December 1st. But something was wrong. Her memory insisted it was November 30th. She rubbed her eyes, convinced she had lost track of time. Yet the whispers grew louder, closer, threading through the walls, under the floorboards, crawling into her mind. She could hear footsteps pacing the hallway outside her apartment. Hesitant, Emily stood, gripping the doorframe for courage. She opened the door. The hallway stretched endlessly, longer than it ever had before. The flickering fluorescent lights above cast uneven, almost mocking illumination. At the far end, a shadow shifted. Emily froze. The shape seemed familiar, like her, yet wrong, distorted, as if she were looking into a cracked mirror. And then the whisper returned, unmistakable and taunting. You can't escape. Emily bolted back into her apartment and slammed the door, locking it with trembling hands. She needed answers, a rational explanation. She grabbed her laptop and searched for anything about repeating nights or temporal loops. Her fingers trembled, but she was desperate. Every search result was a blur of conspiracy theories, urban legends, and forum posts from people who claimed they had lived the same night over and over. Not real, she told herself, but deep down, the dread coiled tighter. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. The whisper became a chant, echoing through her mind. The night repeats. The night repeats. The walls began to ripple, like the surface of water disturbed by a stone. Emily felt herself falling forward, yet standing still, suspended in a horrifying stasis. She closed her eyes, willing herself to wake up from this nightmare, only to find herself opening them again to the same dimly lit room. The clock blinked 3:17 a.m. Everything reset. The whisper, the shadow, the flickering light, all repeated. Panic consumed her. She tried different things, screaming, running, smashing furniture, but nothing changed. The loop persisted. It was a living, breathing prison, and she was trapped inside. With each repetition, the shadow at the end of the hallway grew clearer, more sinister. Its eyes glowed with a knowing malevolence, and Emily realized it wasn't just a shadow. It was her reflection, twisted by the endless cycle. Days, nights, or some twisted measure of time passed. Emily couldn't tell anymore. Hunger gnawed at her. Exhaustion weakened her limbs, but the loop never relented. Her mind began to fracture. She spoke to the shadow, pleaded, begged, but it only mimicked her words, twisting them into a mocking refrain. Then, one iteration, Emily noticed a subtle difference. The whisper paused, hesitant. The clock flickered, stuttering. She seized a moment, running to the window that never existed before. Outside, the city was empty, suffocatingly silent. No cars, no lights, no life. Just a void stretching into black infinity. Fear and determination collided. Emily knew she had to break the pattern. She tore through the apartment, smashing mirrors, breaking clocks, throwing anything that could reflect the relentless loop. Each crash was met with the same cold, echoing refrain. The night repeats. Finally, she stood in the center of the room, chest heaving, heart pounding like a drum. She screamed into the emptiness, "I will not repeat." The shadow recoiled, flickering unstable. The walls vibrated with a deafening hum, and Emily felt herself being pulled into the darkness. And then silence. She woke in her bed, sunlight streaming through the blinds. The date on her phone read December 2nd. For a moment, relief washed over her. The night had ended. She sat up, trembling, and glanced around her apartment. Everything seemed normal. Perhaps it had been a nightmare, after all. But then she heard it, a soft, familiar whisper from the corner of the room. The night repeats. Emily froze, eyes wide, as the shadows stretched longer than they should. The sun seemed to dim, the walls quivering with anticipation. And deep down, she understood. The loop wasn't over. It had only begun again. The night repeats, and Emily was once again its prisoner.